That just was, man. That was tough. That was tough. And it just, losing's losing. And look, you're going to have bad weekends and you're going to have bad days, and it just happens. It's baseball. Even the best teams will come out and drop a stinker, or maybe a weekend of stinkers. It's just, that's the game, and you know it. You watch it. You pay attention to it. You support it. But that was, wow. That's probably the best way for me to describe it, was wow. If it could go wrong, it went wrong. You make an error, the next Florida hitter makes you pay for it. You make a bad pitch, Florida batter isn't missing it. You're at the plate, they make a bad pitch, you don't capitalize. They get runners on base, they knock them in. You get runners on base, you don't knock them in. It was rough. It really was. And I just think you're at a point, first of all, if you're a fan, you're like, oh, wake me up when this nightmare ends. But then at some point, and it'll be obviously at the end of this season, where, okay, now you have to assess the damage, which there is a lot. And then how do you fix it so you don't repeat this ever again? Because, look, my time here, coming up on 4 years, I have learned how much this fan base loves this baseball program, how much it means to this fan base. And so, it didn't take for me to talk to a lot of people this morning, or having people talk to me this weekend, to just know how rock bottom that felt. And I think that, and Wes and Chris, I think, alluded to this as well. It's one thing when you're angry, right? You're mad. You're not happy. That means you still have emotion. You still have feeling. What you don't want is this, You don't want that, because when it's, that means now you've gone past emotion, and now you've got, basically nothing. You're like, whatever. You don't want your fan base to get to whatever. That's the last thing you want. That's no. So you got to just figure out where you go from here. We've talked about the players, and you have to get better players, obviously. But to be fair, some of these players were here last year, the last couple of years, and were better than they were this year. Why? What happened? I mean, a lot of people didn't expect South Carolina to compete for the SEC championship. Obviously, they weren't picked in any top 25s, or very few top 25s, so there wasn't this expectation that the Gamecocks would be in Omaha. But no one saw this coming. So what happened? Why did we end up seeing what we saw? And when it's this bad, it's everyone, man. You just can't point the finger at pitchers, hitters. I mean, the offense and the pitching's near the bottom of the SEC. And here in the last, week, we've seen leaks in the defense, where the defense was solid for most of the year. Well, it hasn't been here lately. Starting with that last Kentucky game, there have been some defensive lapses as well. So, yeah, the talent has to get better. But there are some guys on this team, whether it's everyday players or pitchers, who were here the last year or two and regressed this year or didn't get a chance to even get on the field. Why? I don't know. But that's happened. Why this team, I mean, you bring in a coach who's a Hall of Famer. A Hall of Famer who has gone to the College World Series not only with LSU, but also took Notre Dame. Yeah, Notre Dame, which was a good program when Coach Maneri was handed it, but then Paul got them to the College World Series, then obviously did all the great things that he did at LSU before leaving because of the health stuff. This is a upper-level Hall of Fame coach. Being handed a team last year that wasn't great, wasn't terrible, was better than average. Yeah, lost a couple of important pieces like a Cole Messina, but brought back some players. And it seems like those players regressed, and the players that were brought in didn't do things that you were hoping they would do. And the bottom line is no one saw this coming. I mean, nobody. No one saw this coming. And just why? What the bleep happened? I mean, there's again, you look at some of the things that have gone on. I mean, I don't know. For some reason, this group of players and this coaching staff obviously did not connect. That's part of this. I don't know if it's as simple as, hey, he's got to get better players, everything's going to be fine. I think everybody's got to take a step back and reassess. Remember a couple years ago when South Carolina went 5-7 in football, and Shane was like, I'm going to look at every aspect of this program to prevent this from happening again, or it never to happen again. And what does that mean? We'll find out. There are a lot of different directions to look at this thing. And obviously we'll be repeating some of this riff at the end of the season, because that's when you can really start digging into which direction and which way. You know, we've heard Coach Maneri talk about next year. So it doesn't feel like, and again, we'll know at the end of this season because you still have 6 conference games left. We'll see how Coach Maneri feels. We'll also see how the athletic director, Jeremiah Donati, feels. What does he think about where the program is? Does he have to have a difficult conversation with a Hall of Fame coach? I don't know. And with Coach Maneri, if he is going to come back and the athletic director signs off on him coming back, you got to spend a year in the SEC in 2025, which was different than the SEC you left. What have you learned? What are you going to do different? What are you going to do better? He said, hey, I am going to flip over every rock. I'm going to look at everything in this program, and we're going to figure it out. I remember Shane shuffled coaches, got rid of a coach. Coach left, was looking at the strength and nutritioning, was looking at everything. And he looked at himself. I always think that's real important. You got to look at yourself. I've had a lot of people smarter than me, which is probably about 99% of the population. And I've had people say, the minute you think you got all the answers, you start getting worse. The minute you stop evolving, you're getting worse. The minute you're not looking at everything you do to see how you can do it better or more efficient, or is the world changing around you and you have to change with it, you get worse. So for Coach, if you are back next year, if you decide to come back, or if it's decided you will come back, What are you going to do now that you've seen a full season of SEC baseball? Or do you think it's as simple as get better players? It's not pretty. I will say this, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I'm not sitting here saying you need a new baseball coach. I'm not sitting here saying that that's got to be the move. But I'll say this: if a lot of people have said it to me in the last 24 hours, I've heard a lot of that. Got to get a new baseball coach. The money involved in getting a new baseball coach is going to be, just for the baseball coach himself, would be over $5 million. And then you have to pay off a staff. And on that staff are some highly paid folks. So you are spending between probably $6.5 to $7 million to quote unquote start over. You have rev share coming. You have a lot of unknown factors financially in the world of collegiate athletics that you got to deal with. Don't forget that when you're thinking about those type of things. Again, I don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does, except the people involved. Paul Mainieri might be back next year. Like I said, hopefully he's armed with the ideas of what he needs to do in the modern day of college baseball to get back to the success he's had before. And if you're going a different route for a coach, you're going to have the money to do it. Plus, then after paying the coaching staff to no longer be the coaching staff, you have to pay a lot more money for the new coaching staff. So, again, this is where you're at. But whatever direction this goes in, obviously, this past season, for the pride that is in this baseball program, can't happen again. And this fan base that deeply loves this baseball program, it can't happen for them again. So we'll find out. We're going to hear some Paul Mainieri sound in the next segment there, David Dare. We'll get it fired up. And also, we will hear from you at 803-404-6100, whether it's Firehouse Sub text line, Love Chevy phone line. It is a Monday. It's a halftime show. We let Tyler leave early because he's been here since 6 this morning. Dave wanted him to stay. That was kind of selfish of Dave. I can't believe you would say that, Dave. You said, why is he leaving?
He's a slacker.
Dave's here. Terry Ford, we're hanging up until 3 with the halftime show on the game. All right, halftime show. We got this baby going till 3 here on the game. Then the postgame show will take over with Jay and Elijah. They will have Coach Maneri on, like always, 5:15 later on today. Speaking, obviously, of baseball, it's just a rough weekend. I don't need to give you the scores. We don't need to go over all that. We don't. We know. If you listened to it, you watched it. And if you didn't and you've gone back to, look at the highlights or you're reading up on it, you've seen it all by now, Bad weekend. It's a really, really bad weekend. And I always try, especially in baseball, not to get all overreactionary over a bad weekend or a bad game or whatever the case. I try not to, because baseball is such a weird sport. And, you always heard this, momentum is the next day's starting pitcher. Or, it's such a long season, you're going to have games or series or weeks where it's just the way, even the best of the best. I mean, Tennessee's had some wonky weekends this year, defending national champions. It's just the way the sport goes. So I try not to get too up or too down anytime during a baseball season. But we've seen a lot of what we saw Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and that was on steroids. And I know there's some injuries. Let's be fair. There's also some injuries that have come into play to make this worse, but this wasn't going very well before the injuries. And it was a team that was winning midweek games against mid-major opponents, but losing series of top 25 opponents, and we talked about it here. So it was like, okay, this team isn't terrible. They're not Missouri, but they're not a top 25 quality team. But what happened over the weekend was almost, and one thing we have said also through the season, to the credit of the players and the coaching staff, is there's been no quit. There's just been no quit. There's been no give up. There's been no, here we go again. Oh, my God. I almost felt like we saw it in some way, shape, or form over the weekend of, here we go again. We're terrible. Can we get this over with? I've had enough. This is awful. It just felt like, for the first time, that was it. I know the weather, I get it. It was weird. I do. But still, that was a supreme 3 days of beating that just shouldn't happen. It just shouldn't. All right, here's Coach Maneri, David Ayer. Let's go with Cut 5, talking about a stunningly bad performance.
Well, thank you. I think that's a compliment. Believe me, for 40 years, every day hasn't been easy. So I've unfortunately have a lot of experience of some bad days, rough days. It's not about me. It's about the kids. I'm here for the kids, not for me. And, I just wish we'd have played better. The biggest thing, you are what you are. You're not going to make guys all of a sudden throw 98 miles an hour. You can't all of a sudden make guys hit the ball 450 feet. But we had some defensive lapses today, which I think is the most disappointing thing to me, because, you can deal with whatever your so-called limitations are, but it's not that hard to field a ground ball. You know what I mean? Those are things that any player should be able to do. So, yeah, it was just, in every aspect of the game, we just didn't play very well today. And consequently, we lost 2 games.
I mean, it was rough. I'll say this. I guess, from my point of view, is physical errors happen. They do. I mean, you're not going to field every ball clean. You're not. If you ever played baseball, ever, you know that. If you're playing every day in the field, you're going to make an error. Nobody goes through the season, or very few guys can go through a season errorless. Even the best players are going to kick one. They just are. It's reality. The best outfielders are going to drop a fly ball. They are. The best infielders are going to, a ground ball is going to pop up, and they're either going to miss it, and it's going to take a weird hop. They're just going to, go away from rule number 1 in the infield. Keep your glove down. It's easier to bring your glove up from down than I mean, down from up, then up from down, right? Have the glove on the ground, ball takes a bad hop, comes up on you, you can bring it up. You got your glove up too high, ball's going to go between your legs. Always have your glove down. It's easy to go down from up, right? But you still make errors. You miss balls. It's mental stuff that drives you crazy more than physical stuff. It's throwing to a wrong base. Things of that nature. It's not doing the fundamental things right. That kills you. Because, again, physical errors are physical errors. It's just the mental errors are the ones that hurt you. Yeah, when a ball's hit right at you and you're going to be able to turn a double play and you flub it, and then, of course, the next hitter rips a double in the alley and scores 2 runs, or if you kick a ball at second that you probably field 99 times out of 100, and then 2 batters later some guy hits a 3-run bomb. I get it. I do. But defensively, it's been rough the last 4 games for the most part for a team that was a solid defensive crew before that last game against Kentucky. Let's get cut 6. Speaking of the errors, here's Coach Mainieri talking about why all of a sudden so many errors in these last, roughly 4 games.
Yeah, you mean why they made the errors?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, Jordan Carrion's a really good defensive player. He made an error. It happens. Kazmar's made a lot of plays and gets a double play ball and didn't make the play. It's the way the game is sometimes. I wouldn't chalk it up to anything other than they didn't make the play at that particular moment. I don't know what else to say.
Again, because sometimes it just happens. I mean, again, you don't want critical errors and critical moments. And is it more that if this team was having defensive issues all year, that's one thing. Because defense also obviously is concentration and attention to detail and muscle memory and repeating your fundamentals over and over and over and over and over and over again, right? It just is. It's also physical ability. Some guys are just better defenders than others. Some people have better reaction time than others. Some people put more of a premium on defense than others. But, again, when you're a guy who typically makes those plays and for whatever reason you didn't, then the way Murphy's Law goes, when you're not doing well as a team, those errors always bite you. When you're playing well as a team, you overcome those errors. Everybody picks you up. Like you make that error and there's 2 men on, pitcher bears down, gets a strikeout, right? Or one of your buds in the field bails you out with a hell of a play. Or if the team does score a couple of runs, then offensively everybody picks each other up. And you get those runs back. That's just the game. And right now, everything this team does wrong bites them. And as part of it is you got to be better, sure. But again, I go back to the point of the first segment. You also have players on this team that were better last year or better the last couple of years than they are this year. What happened to Kennedy Jones? I don't know. Blake Jackson? I don't know. Whether it's regressed in how you've been playing or not getting the opportunities to play. I don't know. Pitchers. Matthew Becker went backwards huge this year. Why? I don't know. It's just been, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered here. From players to coaches to everything. And once this season ends, those questions will really start to get answered. They're probably being answered in some way, shape, or form right now by all the people involved, whether with themselves, with their families, with their friends, or hard conversations are starting already that need to be had. We'll see. We'll continue on. We'll get back to baseball here in a little bit. But first, just in case you just woke up, man, we had some stuff happen, obviously, in the NBA playoffs. A historic moment in the NHL playoffs last night. That was, I don't care if you're a hockey fan or not, if you're a sports fan, that was something else. So we'll get to all that next here on the halftime show. David Ayer's punching the buttons. It's Terry Ford. We're going up until 3 here on the game. We've been talking about the Nest for a minute now, about how great the folks at the Nest are if you're looking to get new appliances for your kitchen, new stuff for the bathroom, plumbing, fixtures, lighting. The place to go to is the place with 70 years of experience with the folks who work there, and you will be routed to people who specialize in what you're looking for, experts in the field of what you're interested in upgrading in your home. You set an appointment. You call 803-978-2025. Set an appointment with the expert in lighting, plumbing, bathrooms, kitchens. Anyone who is going to help you out, they will know what's up, and you'll be directed to them. Then you come in. You tell them about your budget, your goals, your wants, your visions, your dreams. They will walk you through a beautiful showroom and sit back down with you, and they'll make it happen in your budget. Call the Nest, 803-978-2025. Get the process started to have your dreams come true in your home. All right, just in case you just woke up. Man, you slept a long time. I'll give you props. Just in case you just woke up. I mean, what an interesting night and day in the NBA playoffs. But what happened in the NHL, and look, we don't talk a ton of NHL hockey. Look, I love Stanley Cup hockey. I'm a goober for it. But I don't sit here and talk about the things that I love that I know you could go. So we don't bring it up a lot. But there was a historic moment last night in the NHL, and if maybe you didn't see SportsCenter, maybe you did. The Winnipeg Jets are down 3-2. The clock is ticking, under 10 seconds, under 5. There was like a second left in the game when Winnipeg gets the tying goal. Unbelievable. Cole Perfetti tips in a shot with a second left, of maybe 1.2 seconds left, to tie the game to force overtime. Winnipeg won it in double overtime. It was Game 7. Winnipeg was this close of underachieving in what was a great season for the Jets. If you haven't seen it, I'm telling you, go to YouTube or Googleize it. It's just a phenomenal sports moment. Forget the idea what sport it is. It was crazy. And Winnipeg won. That's the second night in a row a team has come down from a multi-score deficit in a Game 7 to win. Dallas did it to Colorado. And before that happened, it only happened like 3 other times in Stanley Cup playoff history. Pretty cool stuff going on in the NHL in these last couple of days regarding the Stanley Cup playoffs and Game 7s. All right, so you got a Game 7 last night in the NBA. Let's be honest. Golden State got out to a lead. Rockets made it really close. Golden State got out to a double-digit lead at the half. Rockets cut the lead to 3 in the second half, and then Steph Curry happened. And Steph Curry went all Steph Curry. Not just hitting a couple of threes. The 1-3 was insane. With a defender right in his grill. But Curry's going to the basket, taking what the Rockets were giving him. The Rockets were beating the snot out of Curry the whole series. And that's not a criticism. If the refs are going to let you play super physical, then you play super physical, because you don't want Steph Curry torching you for 50. So Houston's beating him up. Dylan Brooks of the Rockets openly said, yeah, we've been smacking him on his bad thumb. You got a bad thumb? We might have to, quote unquote, accidentally hit that thumb every now and then. So Houston was really physical because the officials let Houston be physical. But the flip side it was a physical series. So Golden State with Draymond Green and some of those cats could be physical. It looked like a 90s NBA series with some of the slobber knockering going on between these two teams. But Steph Curry found a way in the fourth quarter. Jimmy Butler had a couple of big buckets. Houston showed that they were young. And again, the way the NBA goes, you got to get your whoopings before you can hold the trophy. Houston needs a scorer. They need a go-to guy. They need a bucket getter. Everybody's talking about Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant, even now in his mid-30s, would give Houston something they don't have. A lot of people have talked about Giannis. Giannis isn't Kevin Durant, but Giannis obviously can get you a ton of buckets. Houston needs a scorer. They don't have one right now. It's a young team with a lot of really interesting pieces. They're stupid athletic. They play defense like nobody's business. They just need a guy who can get them points. If they get a number one option, they could be a scary team. But Golden State, again, you're more experienced. You've been through the wars. And the Warriors, they take out the Rockets. I feel like this ends for Golden State in the next round against Minnesota, because Minnesota has bucket getters, especially Anthony Edwards, and they are also long and athletic, and they're just a better offensive team than Houston. I think Golden State's season ends in the next round, but Warriors grinded through as a 7 seed, doing something that very rarely happens, beating a 2 seed in the playoffs. What Indiana did yesterday, a lot of people are like, "Oh my God!" And look, Indiana, could they beat the Cavs? I mean, anything can happen. Indiana's got talent. Do I think they beat the Cavs? No. I think Indiana will scare the bejesus out of Cleveland. But I think Cleveland wins the series. Indiana's not going to shoot 50-some% from the floor and 50-some% from three in every game. If they do, they win the series. It's simple. It just is. And Donovan Mitchell can't take 30 shots. And Ty Jerome, God love you, you can't come off the bench and take 20 shots. Two guys can't take 50 shots. That's not the way Cleveland's built. You give the Cavaliers a mulligan on game one. Yeah, you lost at home. That stinks, but you can go on the road and beat Indiana. I will say the one caveat here is Indiana has given Cleveland trouble all year. But I think in a 7-game series, I know look, I get it. Rick Carlisle has won an NBA title as a head coach, but Kenny Atkinson's a good coach too. I think Cleveland still wins the series, even though I think Indiana makes it very difficult. But if Cleveland didn't get the eye-opening pop upside the head yesterday, and I think they needed that as well, because what they did to Miami was a felony in like 44 states, the way they dismembered the Heat. Indiana is not Miami, and maybe Cleveland got that message loud and clear because the Pacers made all the big shots in the fourth quarter to their credit. All the shots. So a very interesting game one. I still think Cleveland wins that series, but a very interesting game one. And real quick, I want to hit this because I want to go back to the whole idea. What you're going to hear in the offseason in the NBA is trading Giannis, trading Kevin Durant, all these trades because everybody likes, superstar trades. When you trade for a superstar, it does work. If you trade away a superstar, like let's say Milwaukee trades Giannis, if you do it right, like Oklahoma City did it when they traded Russell Westbrook and Paul George, or Houston when they traded James Harden, it works. It does. You can rebuild your team if you make smart moves with all the draft capital and the young players you get. You can rebuild your team like Oklahoma City and Houston have done. Yes, you can do it. Or you can do it like Minnesota did when they traded Kevin Durant. And they got a ton of picks. They got the 5th pick in the draft and the 7th pick in the draft. I believe it was 2009. They picked Ricky Rubio and Johnny Flynn. You know who they passed up twice? Some guy named Steph Curry. So it's not just getting all the draft capital and getting all these pieces. It's having the smarts and also having the luck to be able to leverage those assets into rebuilding your team. It's not guaranteed, but you can do it if you follow, again, the blueprint of the smart teams. And the Atlanta Braves, they avoided a sweep. Austin Riley with a couple of home runs. The Braves finally got the Dodgers. Finally. I saw an interesting little deep dive on the Braves and that horrid 0-7 start they had. No team has ever come from that start and made the postseason. I think only one team has come back from that start and got over 500. But to be fair, none of those teams had the talent the Braves do. And the Braves are already sniffing back around 500. I think the Braves will be fine. I think they can still get themselves in the playoffs. But, yeah, when I was reading this little deep dive, the first thing I saw was no team has come, from 0-7 and made the postseason. But then you start reading more. None of those teams that have started 0-7 before were anywhere near as talented as the Braves. So we'll see. But a nice win to avoid the sweep at the hands of the Dodgers yesterday. Firehouse Sub text the hour. Oh, yeah, the text line is cooking. We'll get to it next. 803-404-6100. Don't forget later today, Schroeder's Towing Roadshow takes us to Savage Craft Ale Works, 430 Center Street in West Columbia. Post-game show with Jay and Elijah. They'll also have Coach Maneri on at 5:15 as well. Schroeder's Towing Roadshow, Savage Craft in West Columbia, 3 to 6 today here on the Game. Firehouse Sub text of the hour next on the halftime show on the Game in Columbia. All right, today we might be expanding the text of the hour to the textuses through the show. We always appreciate you, 803-404-6100. Text real fast, unnamed texter. You hit it earlier. This is the same team that was ranked 13th exactly 1 year ago. Another text about what we discussed in the first segment. Apathy is way scarier than angry any day. And those two texts, I mean, we brought this up. Look, we get why it was time to move on from Mark Kingston. We get it. The program was kind of stuck in neutral, right? And it felt like after X amount of years that Mark Kingston was not the guy to get you to Omaha. He could get you winning seasons. He could get you in the postseason. He obviously could get you the Supers. He's done that twice. But this is a guy, for whatever reason, has never gone to Omaha as a head coach. And you feel like, okay, we got to get somebody who either A, has been to Omaha as a head coach, or B, is that hot shot up-and-comer that has had this wild, great success at a lower level, but with the resources of South Carolina, could get him over the top. You go get a guy who's been there, done that in Paul Mainieri. Two different teams Mainieri's taken to Omaha. Two. So you figured, okay, you hopefully have enough coming back. You'll add some pieces through the portal and through the old way of bringing in freshmen. And with a Omaha/Hall of Fame type head coach, everything will get back in the right direction. And it has been nothing anybody saw coming. So the point of the one texter, this was a top 15 team at this time last year. Remember, the team ran out of gas. There was injuries and everything just kind of, came to a slow halt. But it was a team that was ranked in the top 15 pretty much at this time last year. And it's gotten a ton worse this year with what you think is a better coach and some pieces coming back from last year. Like I said this in the beginning, no one was sitting here thinking, well, now you got this new coach who's been to the College World Series, Omaha, here we come, baby. No one was saying that. But no one saw this at all. And to the other text about apathy, yeah, you don't want apathy. And I feel like even when the teams were good, and obviously it was a couple years ago that Kingston got South Carolina to a super, losing to Florida, and then last year got into the postseason and got beat in the regional. It just felt like, though, the fan base didn't believe in Kingston and didn't believe Kingston could get South Carolina back to who they used to be, right? It just never felt that way. And even talking to fans, it was like, yeah, they're winning, but. There was a lot of yeah buts about Kingston. And some of those things were just, not the most fan-friendly guy in the world, or it always feels like this team finds a way not to execute or win the big moments in the postseason under Kingston. The fan base just didn't believe in Kingston. And so you bring in a guy who has been there, done that. And I think there was the want to have hope now that this is going to get back on the right track. But as this year has gone on, again, it wasn't very loud at Founders over the weekend. And I know the weather stunk, and I get it. Didn't sound like a whole lot of bodies were in the ballpark. And again, the last thing you want is apathy. Apathy is not good, ever. You ever had that, you went out with someone for a while and everything was like emotional and all this stuff. And then once the feeling's gone, then apathy. You don't want apathy. So again, decisions have to be made by a lot of people between really at the end of the season. If they're made before, okay. But decisions have to be made along a bunch of different fronts to get this thing figured out so you can start moving once again back in the right direction. I appreciate the text. We'll get to more on the Firehouse Subtext line, so please hit us up at 803-404-6100 as we continue down this path. And again, 5:15, Coach Maneri will be on with Jay and Elijah as they'll be hanging at Savage Craft Ale Works, one of our craft beer stops with our craft beer card, Schroeder's Towing Roadshow. And Elijah's goal is to sample every craft beer at Savage Craft. I've never met a man who will fall on the sword more for the radio station. I'm getting a little teary-eyed just thinking about the sacrifices that Elijah Campbell has made in his year plus with us. You know, eating bull testicles. I mean, what a sacrifice. Still get creeped out thinking about it.
I'm a team player, Terry.
The constant sampling of craft beers at every one of our craft beer stops on the Schroeder's Towing Road shows.
The issue here is someone's got to do it, and I'm just the one brave enough to try every single beer at every single location.
You are at a level of bravery I don't think anybody else in this radio station can even fathom to get to.
Somebody has to do it on courage alone, and I think I have enough for everyone. And I came here, and I noticed there was a void in people not drinking all the beer and doing the on-air stunts, whether it be
basically a void in that type of courage.
Between the bull testicles and the atomic wings at Quaker Steak and Lube.
Let me tell you, don't get me wrong. The Rocky Mountain oysters, first of all, I turned colors thinking about eating them. But sitting there across from you, watching your face bubble as you ate the atomic wings.
I mean, and you know what? It was manageable. That one wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. But somebody here's got to be the stunt man.
And
I think I end up falling on that sword.
You are the jackass. You are kind of the jackass guy for.
Oh yeah. If just got to find a shopping cart to push me down Gervais, I'd do it. I'd do it for the bit.
Football, and lots of football and more football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the halftime show. Terry Ford and David Dare, and we're just hanging out here till 3 on the game. Post-game show will be live from Savage Ale in West Columbia. Schroeder's Towing Roadshow, 3 to 6, promoting our new craft beer card. You can always check that out. Go to 1075thegame.com, click Sweet Deals. Bam, you go in and check out the craft beer card. Lots of savings, lots of craft beer. So, again, our craft beer card back out again. All right, very interesting little post popping up on Gamecock Central this weekend. Lenore Sellers, look, he's getting a lot of that way too early Heisman hype. Looked at in the top 6, top 7, whatever the case for the Heisman. Well, now the way too early 2026 mock draft hype has started. And Lenore Sellers is in on that as well. We talked about this the other day. Jordan Reed from ESPN put out his first way too early mock for 2026. And Jordan Reed had Lenore Sellers going number 4 overall to the Jets. Todd McShay from The Ringer also predicted Sellers at 4, but going to the Rams in a trade-up in a hypothetical. Now, again, the Jets quarterback situation, Justin Fields is a short-timer on a one-year deal. And look, to be honest, Justin Fields is what he is, it feels like. Could he have some Geno Smith transformation? Maybe. I don't know. Or a Sam Darnold transformation? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But it feels like Justin Fields is the kind of player that he is. He can take off and do damage with his legs. He does have an NFL arm, but he's not consistently accurate. He has trouble processing and reading the field. And that's just who he is. And if Justin Fields is that guy again in 25, Jets will be in the market for a quarterback. The Rams, Matthew Stafford just turned 80. Still plays at a high level, but Stafford's going year to year at this point. So do you go get your quarterback of the future? Maybe the Rams do and trade up in that scenario that Todd McShay threw out and snag Lenore Sellers. If Sellers takes the next step this year, which we all hope he does, the next stop is the first round of the NFL draft. Because what Sellers can do with his legs is special. At times we saw what he did with his arm last year was special. If the more special occasions with his arm happens enough to where it's catching up to his legs, Lenore Sellers will go very high in the first round of the NFL draft. Just will. Also, which was very interesting, is Todd McShay included Nick Harbor in his 2026 first-round projections. Yeah. He listed Harbor as a top 15 pick. And again, if Nick Harbor continues to develop like we saw him develop at the last, maybe 4 games of 2024, sky's the limit with that kind of physical ability. If Nick Harbor can take that track speed and start to have that speed impact the game on the football field, Nick Harbor becomes a scary human being at that size. And I think with Harbor, because the one thing watching Harbor is that track speed hasn't translated to football speed. And I think because Nick Harbor is trying to learn how to play the position of wide receiver, and he's thinking a lot. And when you're thinking, you're not just, letting your physical skills and abilities take over, because your mind's saying to your physical skills, hey, bro, I got to figure this out, okay? Because I got no clue what the heck we're doing. So you just slow down with all your speed and stuff, okay? But if it becomes muscle memory, what Harbor has to do from the neck up, then maybe he starts playing faster and starts playing more to that track speed. That's the hope, because if Harbor can start bringing that track speed to the field consistently, that's a weapon. That's an absolute weapon, especially if he gets better at all the other mechanics of being a wide receiver like we saw him start to do in the last month of 2024. So very interesting, though. Not only seeing Lenore Sellers in one of these way too early mocks, but also Nick Harbor as well. Very interesting. And look, with Lenore Sellers, we talk about it all the time, the sky is the limit. It just is. With the skill set that Lenore Sellers has, who knows where it goes. And if his passing skills catch up to his running skills, he also might be a guy sitting in New York at the Heisman Trophy ceremony. Who knows? And hopefully that's the kind of thing that can lead South Carolina to the college football playoff. So again, there's a lot of hope and a lot of anticipation. And it all starts with Nick Harbor to a lesser extent, but it all starts with Lenore Sellers and then Dylan Stewart. So we'll see. But that was kind of cool, kind of interesting. We'll draft way too early draft stuff. Very interesting. Speaking of interesting, Gamecock Central doing their rundowns, all the different position groups and position rooms, and they've been trying to hit all of them. And I mean, and the reading's really good. You go to GamecockCentral.com. You can look at all of these position group posts. And there's so much competition on this football team. So much. And if you zero in on just some things, you go, okay, where does it feel like there is the most wide open competitions? And it's tough. I mean, wide receiver is wide open. Running back is wide open. Tight end's wide open. Guards, center, even though it feels like Boaz Stanley's getting a hold of the center position. If I had to sit and I think guard is the most wide open. You got some guys coming back, but they haven't played a ton. At running back, Oscar Attaway, he was the number 2, but he got some snaps and had some moments of production for South Carolina. And, Faison coming in from Utah State had a phenomenal season last year. And you have 2 young running backs in Howell and Fuller that show a lot of potential. So I don't feel like running back would beat guard. And wide receiver, with Harbor coming back for year 3 and improving the way he was down the stretch. Brown played the slot at Coastal Carolina, adjusting to playing out wide, plus the injuries. But Brown has experience and a resume of, you get Brown the ball, he can do some things after the catch. Mazio Bennett had a nice, solid freshman season. And I feel like with Mazio Bennett, who the hell's that guy? With Mazio Bennett's work ethic and his want to be special, I believe he will take a nice step in year 2. I don't know how big of a step, but I believe there will be a step in productivity for Mazio Bennett. So I think, yes, you have a ton of freshman wide receivers. You have Dre Jacobs. But I think you also have a pecking order at wide receiver. Guard, I don't know, man. Trovon Ball, you've got, Tree Babalati, you've got transfer portal guys coming in with experience that in one way, shape, or form couldn't play as much as you were hoped they would in the spring. I mean, you got a lot of stuff there, and you got to figure out the 2 pieces out of all of that. Because Torricelli Simpkins was really good last year, especially in pass protection. Kamar Bell he had his good days and his bad days, but overall, he was all right. He held his own, and it was a huge improvement from the year before. So I think guard, really, if I looked at the offense, guard is the one that I feel like is the biggest unknown, even though you have guys with experience in there. I don't know. I just feel like out of the 3, really 4, wide receiver, tight end, running back, and interior offensive line, I feel like interior offensive line. And I feel like, look, this is nothing against wide receivers or tight ends or running backs. That offensive line is so important. It is so vital to the success of this football team. And you have a little bit of a question mark out at tackle, even though you have 2 guys coming back who gained a lot of experience last year that you feel good that they'll take the step forward in 2025. Josiah Thompson, he was a freshman. Freshmen starting left tackles get knocked all over the place their first year in the SEC. Cason Henry, even though he's been around longer than Josiah Thompson, was his first year as a starter as well. And there were a lot of moments where Cason Henry struggled. So you got two tackles who are coming off of, below average seasons for different reasons, and you lost your starting guards and your starting center. Now, again, the optimism is both tackles should get better this year. And Boaz Stanley, when Stanley was moved to center last year, he was a much better player than he was out of tackle before coming to South Carolina out of the portal. So those are the things that will make you feel good about this. But there's some unknown on the offensive line. There's a lot of bodies and a lot of quality talent in the offensive line room. So that's why I think that's the one that I feel like is really still has to play itself out, like big time before it's over with. All right, football, the 1 o'clock hour, always sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the Game. Quinn Ewers did not leave Texas and go in the portal. Quinn Ewers left Texas, went to the NFL draft, had to wait till the 7th round for his name to be called, right? So a lot of folks have criticized Quinn Ewers for not going into the portal and finding another team, sort of like pulling a Carson Beck. Quinn Ewers' agent spoke up over the weekend to explain why Quinn Ewers did not go in the portal and end up like Carson Beck. And we'll get into that next here on the Halftime Show. David Ayer, Terry Ford, happy you could be hanging out with us. We go till 3 here on the Game. We yap a ton of football in the 1 o'clock hour, always sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Terry Ford, David Ayer here. Tyler, he woke up way too early to be Bill Gunner. I think Tyler's like 6'1" or 6'2". A little bit taller than Bill. Right? I think Bill's about 5'2".
I think he uses the high chair to eat.
We got a million of them. All right, so Tyler was here this morning filling in for Gunner. So send him home, take a nap. He will be back tomorrow. Elijah is going to hang in for Bill tomorrow on the early game. So,
Where is Bill?
I don't know.
You say?
He says he's going to sit at home and do nothing.
That's what I do on my vacation.
My vacations are spent like this. Where you want to go, babe? What do you feel like doing, sweetheart? Where are we going to go? Or this past year was, what college do we have to visit? Okay.
You reach a point at a certain age where you don't want to go out that much anymore. You're like,
I'll be honest with you, it's really funny. I was talking to one of these guys on the 19th floor that works one of these other like offices, and we were talking about something. I said, when's the last time you sat in your house and said, wow, I'm really bored. I got nothing to do. Give me the remote. I can't remember the last time I did it. Man, when I was a teenager, that was like the worst ever. Man, this really sucks. I'm laying on the couch with the remote. I want something to do. I'd kill for that right now. Man, I got nothing to do. This really sucks. Give me the remote. I want to sit on the couch and channel surf. I did over the weekend, though. Maybe I start doing this as a little cool segment on Mondays. I didn't have time to watch Severance, Dave, so we won't even go there. But I did have like the TV on non-sports in the background because there was no sports on. So I saw the last half hour of Almost Famous. What a good movie.
Yeah, great movie.
The airplane scene at the end is classic. Where they think they're all going to die because the plane's going to crash, and they all start telling their truths, right?
Yeah. And singing Buddy Holly.
It's so good. It's Almost Famous. It's such a good movie.
And then the next scene, they get their old butts back.
I know. So funny. And the other movie I had on the background, and I haven't watched it since, it's one of my favorite movies ever, and I haven't watched it in such a long time, Airplane.
Oh, yeah.
I had Airplane on the background. You forget all the little dumb jokes in Airplane until you watch it again, and you're like, oh, my God, this is so dumb, I'm laughing. I can't help myself. I loved Airplane. And, of course, most of the jokes in the movie Airplane you couldn't do today.
That's true.
The groups that would be going after that movie today would be unreal. So that's what I did. My non-sports stuff, Almost Famous, and Airplane. All right, a lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Okay, so we talked about this when it was going on near the end of the season. Quinn Ewers, the starting quarterback at Texas. It's obvious this was it for Ewers. In 2025, it was the Arch Manning show. That's just the way it was. The plan was Ewers is going to ball out this year and then go to the NFL draft. Well, Ewers pretty much was Quinn Ewers. He didn't get better. He was hurt. Still had issues with pocket presence. Still had issues throwing the ball downfield. Not even the want to throw the ball downfield. Still with some struggles in consistency in the 10 to 19-yard area. He was Quinn Ewers, and the NFL was like, So Ewers was going to be a day 3 pick at best. So the thought was you'll make more money if you go in the portal and pull a Carson Beck and go rip $3-4 million. Pete Nakos from 1-3 said there were, and again, these are rumors. There was rumors of offers that could have gone up to $6 million for Quinn Ewers in the portal. Because Quinn Ewers is a solid college quarterback. Obviously, you can win with Quinn Ewers on a high level. No one's saying Quinn Ewers is, a wow quarterback talent that can take over games, but Quinn Ewers, He's shown you put him in the right system with the right players around him, and you can win a ton of games in college and get to the college football playoff because Texas has been there 2 years in a row. There was more money to be made for Quinn Ewers to stay in college, hit the portal, than it was to go to the NFL. So the thought is, well, why did Quinn Ewers go to the NFL? That wasn't very smart. Well, Ewers' agent, Ron Slavin, explained why the transfer portal was never an option. Slavin says that Ewers would have had to make that decision while Texas was still playing in the college football playoff, which is a point. For an example, if Ewers put his name in the open market with a game against Ohio State coming up, that would have been a distraction and there would have been chaos. Yes, you could have started Arch Manning, but still, you're flipping a lot of stuff upside down. Slavin's quote here was, you can ask those questions, but the reality of it is the way the portal schedule is set. It was not possible for Quinn because he didn't want to be talked about when it comes to the portal. When they beat Arizona State on January 1st, the next game was January 10th. If he was going to commit to a Miami or a Notre Dame, he was going to do that while his team's got a playoff game in a week. And his teammates are going to look at him like, you're going to another school if we lose? You can't do that. That's a quote from the agent. Slavin added that schools wanted an answer on Ewers' decision on January 1st, which was the same day of the Peach Bowl against Arizona State. And, of course, you heard Slavin, the quote, was Miami and Notre Dame. So let's say two teams who could have used a veteran quarterback for this upcoming season. Miami got Carson Beck. Remember, Beck was hurt. Beck goes in the portal. Georgia got knocked out by Notre Dame in the college football playoff. Beck moved on because Beck was not coming back to Georgia. And I think that was a Georgia decision, to be quite honest. So this calendar is even screwy for the players going in the portal if your team goes deep in the playoffs, is the point here. So instead, Ewers will be with the Dolphins, making nowhere near as much money as he could have if he would have stayed in college. But he couldn't go in the portal just because of the way this whole thing's set up. And, I was looking at these five-star quarterbacks because Ewers was a five-star quarterback over the years. And you just look at some of these guys obviously have been very successful, moved on to the NFL, first-round picks, different levels of success. Like a Kyler Murray, who's a starting quarterback in Arizona. Obviously, five-star. Tua Tagovailoa was a five-star, first-round pick in the NFL draft. Trevor Lawrence was a five-star. Justin Fields was a five-star. Spencer Rattler was a five-star. Bryce Young. A lot of five-stars. Caleb Williams was also a five-star. J.J. McCarthy. Yeah, so there's success stories when it comes to five-stars, yes. But also, there are the stories like the Brock Vandergriffs. We talked about that with Tyler a couple times. Vandergrift played in a low classification level of high school football. He was the biggest kid in the league, and he just couldn't get it translated to college. Couldn't make the leap. DJ Uiagalelei. We saw just, again, it didn't work for whatever reason. Just couldn't process the game from the neck up as a quarterback. Just couldn't get it done. A guy like, Hunter Johnson, who Clemson twice, couldn't get it done. Jacob Eason had 1 year as a starter for the Huskies of Washington, went to the NFL. What happened to him? Yeah, he's not playing. These things happen. Blake Barnett, five-star kid, went to Bama. He was the starter before Jalen Hurts. Started a game, didn't work. Had to stop at JUCO, went to Arizona State, South Florida, da-da-da-da. So some five-star kids, it just doesn't, whether they were bigger than everybody else in their league or they were the biggest growers, and then once they got, to college football in a power conference, they realized, well, I'm not the biggest kid anymore. And some of the quarterbacks are physically gifted. But when it comes to now you have to process the game more mentally, that's where some might struggle. Whether it's they never had to, they just can't do it because they're physically is where they are so imposing as a quarterback, whatever the case. But it's interesting looking over the 31 five-star quarterbacks in the last 10 recruiting cycles. And right now, really quick, the five stars that are sitting around in college football today, There are a few. Ty Simpson, for an example, at Alabama. He played in a smaller classification in high school. He's going to get his shot in Tuscaloosa to see if he can be the guy. Dante Moore's going to get his chance to be the guy at Oregon after transferring from UCLA. Nico, his first year was a mixed bag. He's going to get another shot at UCLA. Drew Aller at Penn State. I mean, I think he's starting his 9th year. And people think if Aller can improve upon what he did last year, he could be a first-round pick in the NFL draft before it's all said and done. Connor Wegman has moved on. Signed with Houston after just a rough go at Texas A&M and losing his gig this past year to Marcel Reed. Cade Klubnik seems like he's got it going at Clemson after last year. We'll see. So that's the 5-star stuff is interesting. Some have gone to the NFL, like Bo Nix was much better, and a lot of people thought he was going to be in Denver his first year as a starter in the NFL. We'll see how Nix does as he moves forward. But it's like I said, there's some successes, some massive failures. Again, when you're trying to project 17 and 18-year-olds moving forward to go to the next level, obviously, and the quarterback position is just, whether it's college, pros, I don't think anybody has really, truly figured it out. Because remember, the pro success rate for a first-round pick is about 42% to be a franchise quarterback. A lot of football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Saturday down south, they decided they were going to rank the coaches in the SEC. What the heck? Let's see what Saturday down south thinks of the head coaches in the Southeastern Conference. We'll do that next. Don't forget, Paul Maneri on this afternoon with the postgame show, like always, with Jay and Elijah at 5:15. We have Carolina baseball Thursday, Friday, Saturday against Auburn. Thursday gets it going, 7:45 pregame, 8 o'clock first pitch. That's right here on the Game in Columbia and our affiliate Myrtle Beach. Halftime show, the ranking of coaches in the SEC by Saturday down south. We'll investigate it next here on the Game. You know, when you're not feeling right, you feel off, you don't feel good, and you want to get answers, personalized, confidential service is the best way to go if you're a guy. Because, guys, we don't want to talk about anything. We don't want the world to know our problems. We're men. We're tough. Rub some dirt on it. Push that bone back in and get some duct tape. Don't be a sissy boy. So if you don't feel like the guy you used to be, it could just be low testosterone. That's all. One way to find out is call 803 or call 803-875-MENS, the Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Talk to Dr. Dan and the staff, set up a confidential free consultation. Tell them your story. If they do think it's low T, they'll do some lab work. If it comes back low testosterone, they will put you on a plan that is designed specifically for you to get you back to feeling like you again. Make that call, 803-875-MENS, Men's Clinic of South Carolina. What you're talking about, what we're talking about is football, like always, in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on the game. The SEC list of coaches. It's list season. Every now and then we pick a list. We'll have a little fun with it or look at it. We don't like to do them all the time, but we'll do them every now and then. Saturday Down South put together their list of ranking coaches in the SEC. 16-1. And to the surprise of no one, Jeff Lebby is at 16. 1 year at Mississippi State, there's a ton of struggling. That rebuild is going to take a little time. I mean, first of all, you had the unfortunate passing of Mike Leach. And then you had just a train wreck of a season after that with Zach Arnett. Yes, he was young. He wasn't ready. And it's also almost like Arnett decided to do everything he could to go away from everything Leach did, to forge his own identity. That's good, but you didn't look at your roster. While you're out forging your own identity, you realize that pretty much all the players on offense were recruited to play Mike Leach's offense, and you decided to bring in an offensive coordinator who was going to not run anything near what Mike Leach did, even though all the players were brought in to run Mike Leach's offense. Plus, your defense kind of went in the crapper when you became the head coach. And so you move off from Arnett, you hire Jeff Lebby. So Lebby's got to kind of put all this back together. It's going to take a minute. I truly think, and I've always been like this, give a guy 3 years. Where's he at? Where's the program? Is it going in the right direction? Is the momentum forward? And, you know, I think you have to give Lebby 3 years. This thing just went sideways. The only reason because of the unfortunate passing of Mike Leach. So now you got to get it back on the right tracks. But Lebby right now 16 feels like it makes sense. Hugh Freeze is at 15 at Auburn, and I find that interesting. I mean, you know, Freeze was very successful at Ole Miss, very successful at Liberty. Yeah, the Auburn thing hasn't gone as well as folks were hoping after a couple years. And look, Freeze better kick it up a notch this year. But I think he's got a better track record than. And look, I love Uncle Sam Pittman. I do. But I think Freeze has had a little bit more success on the resume than Pittman. Or Brent Venables, for that matter. Venables had one good year. And then two years. And if Venables has another year, he's going to be the ex-head coach at Oklahoma. Just like Sam Pittman. Sam Pittman goes backwards this year, he'll be the ex-head coach at Arkansas. I mean, Pittman survived the hot seat last year, but that didn't buy him a couple more years at all. Sam's still going year to year. I mean, getting back to a bowl game was great, but you won 9 games in your second season. You set a bar up you haven't come close to since. Just saying. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. I think if you're going to say who did the most with the least, I get Clark Lee at 12, I guess. Because, I mean, if you get Vandy to a bowl game, I almost feel like that should be automatic entrance in the College Football Hall of Fame. But, you know, Clark Lee, what I like that Clark Lee did was he stopped, he took a step back, and he really looked at things. He brought in Jerry Kill to basically to be his assistant head coach from New Mexico State. Brought in Kill's offensive coordinator. Also brought his quarterback, Diego Pavia, from New Mexico State. Basically, they moved to Mexico State east. But that was smart by Clark Lee. Evolve. Take a step back. What's going to make you better? And that's what Clark Lee did last year. I give him props for that. We'll see where everything goes this year. Number 11, Billy Napier. I think Napier's a good football coach. I just don't know if Florida's the right fit for Napier, and Napier's the right fit for Florida. Got 8 wins last year. You know, everybody thought he'd be the first guy in America to get fired. A lot of people, including me, were even wondering if Napier makes it through the year. But, hey, give Sunbelt Billy credit. But 8 wins is not acceptable at Florida. At some point, you got to start winning again, like in the Urban Meyer, Steve Spurrier eras. You're like, Terry, that's 2 Hall of Fame coaches. But that's now what you're being measured by. Forget any of the other years at Florida with other coaches. Nobody cares. Yeah, you're dealing with a lot of kookiness in Florida. A lot of cooks are in the kitchen. You know, it seems like the minute you get hired to Florida, there's a faction of the fan base that can't wait to fire you. I get it. It's weird. But two guys navigated it successfully. They were two guys with big personalities and big egos who could just basically tell you what's up and tell you to get out of the way and let them do what they can do, and you saw they were successful. I don't think Billy Napier's got that kind of personality. I think it's tough to be good long-term in Florida if you don't have the big personality and a lot of self-belief like a Spurrier or an Urban Meyer. See, I think Billy Napier, Mike Elko had one solid year at A&M. He did a really nice job at Duke. But we forget what Billy Napier did, and I know it was in a mid-major, but Billy Napier, before he came to Florida, was crazy successful. And I think we forget that because it was a group of five. Mike Elko was really good at Duke in the ACC, but Duke is not a football school. But I guess you look at what Elko did at Duke was like, wow, he did that at Duke? And it was only a couple-year run, but still Elko was impressive. And at A&M, it feels like they got some of the stink of the Jimbo years off of you in Elko's first year. Remember, they were undefeated in the SEC when they showed up at Williams-Brice in South Carolina, gave them a punkin'. I don't know if they recovered from, to be quite honest. But Elko is sitting at 10. Yeah, I'm like fine with that. Mark Stoops at 9. Yeah. I mean, Stoops is the most overpaid coach in America. But Stoops is a good football coach. He's just not a great football coach. He's good. He's solid. Kentucky's had a couple of 10-win years under Stoops. And it's Kentucky football where they're just like, yeah, just do something to keep us interested till basketball season, then we don't care what you do. So, again, Stoops has like one of the best jobs in America. Win enough to get to a bowl game, win enough to keep everybody interested until basketball season. That's all you got to do. That's it. Shane's at number 8. You know, I feel like that's fair right now. I mean, Beamer's been to a bowl game 3 out of his 4 seasons, a 9-win year, an 8-win year, and a 7-win year. He hasn't got that double-digit deal yet. But, you know, Shane has 7 wins versus the top 25, which is pretty good. 4 of those are on the road, by the way. Eli Drinkwitz is ahead of Shane at 7. Yeah, Missouri, they had a double-digit win campaign a couple of years ago. I get Drinkwitz a little bit ahead of Shane, as much as Eli Drinkwitz can be massively annoying, but he stands on business. Lane Kiffin's at 6. I think Lane did not get enough criticism for what happened at Ole Miss last year. Lane's a really good football coach. And 6, I would put Lane ahead of Josh Heupel, I think, in some ways. Even though Heupel got to the college football playoff last year, so results say maybe you do have Heupel at 5 and Lane at 6. I think Lane's really good, but Lane last year, that team was built to go to the college football playoff, and they underachieved. And Lane, it's so funny, Lane has flipped 180. For a while, Lane was hateable, and now people almost think Lane's fun and interesting and all these other things. And it feels like sometimes he was being criticized unfairly in the early days. Now he's been given a pass. Should not get a pass for what happened at Ole Miss last year. They flat out underachieved. Josh Heupel at 5 has done a much better job at Tennessee than I thought he would do. I give him props. Brian Kelly at 4, and some people might go, well, that's pretty high. I mean, Kelly did have the longest active 10-win season streak in the country till last year. He only won 9. Now, has he gotten LSU in the college football playoff? Not yet. Should he? Yeah. Did he probably too much too fast his first year? Yeah, I would say so. Kelly's a really good football coach. He just comes off as the guy you would least like to sit around and have a beer with. Or the guy you don't want to be locked in a room with. It just seems like that would be miserable. But Kelly's a really good football coach. And, of course, Notre Dame getting to the college football playoff and rolling through the college football playoff kind of made Brian Kelly look a little silly. Because Kelly left Notre Dame, she said, you can't do that there. Well, someone else did, Brian. Kalen DeBoer at 3, played for a national championship. He has won everywhere. His winning percentage is filthy. Last year at Alabama was underwhelming. Obviously, you can't have another year like that at Alabama. Maybe a little high at 3 for Kalen DeBoer. Sarkisian's at 2, back-to-back trips to the college football playoff. I guess right now the way the whole coaching tree is in the SEC, I guess Sarkisian at 2. I get it. And Kirby Smart, obviously, at number 1. And by the way, Sarkisian's been much better at Texas than I thought he would be. And I'll raise my hand. I totally missed that one. Totally did. Give Sark a lot of credit. All right, so that's Saturday Down South. That's their ranking of the SEC coaches from 16 to 1. Firehouse Sub text the hour 803-404-6100 is next here on the halftime show. David Dare is steering the ship. It's Terry Ford. We go to 3 on the game.
Journalism is on the move as they turn for home, and Sovereignty is coming with him on the outside. The two of them go right by with a furlong to run. on. Journalism and sovereignty, nose to nose, down to the last 16th of a mile. Sovereignty has taken the lead. Journalism is second toward the inside. Baez is third, but it will be sovereignty to rule the Kentucky Derby. Journalism and Baez over next. Final Gambit was fourth. The final time was 2:02.31 seconds.
All right, so Sovereignty wins the Kentucky Derby, beating the favorite Journalism. Kind of the flip at Santa Anita when Journalism beat Sovereignty, if my memory serves me. You're like, Tara, what does that have to do with football? Well, here's what it has to do with football. Xavier Legette was covering the Derby, baby. He was everywhere. Former Gamecock, current Carolina Panther. I mean, he's discussing all sorts of stuff. We'll start off with Legette. Guy Fieri, obviously from, drive-ins, diners, and dives. I watched a little bit of that this weekend, too. Guy Fieri was hanging out with Xavier Legette, and Legette was telling Guy Fieri about cooking raccoon. You ever had raccoon, Dave?
No.
Well, what's wrong with you?
Or possum or squirrel.
Never eaten raccoon either. Never had possum. Never had squirrel. Never had anteater. Never had. I ain't even done frog legs, man. No.
What armadillo?
Tastes like chicken. Had that one. No, I've never had armadillo. Never had a honey badger. No.
Honey badger.
There's people in my family who would sit there and go, "All right, man, let's go on outside and let's go kill dinner." There are people in my family who are, but I am not one of those. So I've never had any of these delicacies. And Xavier
You
Legette.
have nothing to talk about at family reunions.
Yes.
You're the guy who just goes, oh, okay.
Exactly. I'm like, okay.
I know that feeling.
Also, I'm going, when they talk about all these different things they're eating, like up in the mountains where my dad's from, and they go, well, you want a burger? No, I'm just going to have some banana pudding. I know the banana pudding's safe. There's no raccoon in the banana pudding. We're good. All right, here's Xavier Legette with Guy Fieri. Legette is discussing cooking raccoon with Guy Fieri.
I got a couple questions for y'all today. All right. Oh, well, I know you're a chef, my man.
Right.
How you feel about cooking some raccoon?
You know what? We were just having a raccoon cooking conversation the other day. And a buddy of mine swears he is like the raccoon chef.
Oh, yeah.
No, really. He was giving me a whole rundown on it. So, no, I would be down with it. My motto is, we're both hunters. And our motto is, if you're going to hunt it, you got to eat it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So, I think, are you a raccoon chef?
Yes, sir.
Give me the breakdown on it. What's the marinade? I want to hear this.
Oh, yeah. So man, we got a little secret now. I can't give it to everybody.
You can't give me the secret.
I can't give you the secret.
As chefs, we share as chefs.
Hey, I can't give you a secret now because there's some down in the bottom South Carolina type of cooking, you know what I'm saying? But I can tell you how we do it, though. We put it in the pressure cooker, let the meat fall off the bone, put it in the oven until we're going to chop it up first now.
All right.
I'll tell you, we put some little crushed peppers on it and all that, man.
Okay.
Let that marinate in there. And that's how
But it's good eating.
Oh, yeah, it's good eating now.
Well, you're not going to kick down on that raccoon recipe, huh? We're talking about this offline? Yeah. This isn't for you guys right now.
Okay, Dave, you change your mind. You put it in the pressure cooker. Now, do you kill it first?
I think so.
Guess, right? Guess.
This isn't one you find bloated in the backyard, is it? You actually
Just laying there for days?
Yeah, there was one on the sidewalk the other day.
You pick it up off the sidewalk, you put it in the pressure cooker, Dave.
Even the buzzards wouldn't touch this one. It was bad.
It's pretty bad when the buzzards look down and go, yeah, we're good. We're all right. So, again, hey, to each your own, man. Eat whatever you want. It's up to you. Tara can't do the raccoon.
Marinates it in pepper. I like that.
Well, Xavier, look, again, Guy Fieri, look, I like that show. I do like that show. He opened up one of his Guy Fieri restaurants in Baltimore, I forget how many years ago. And we did one of our pregame shows there for football, for the Ravens. Food was solid, pretty good, and we got it for free, which made it taste even better. No raccoon, though, Dave, on the menu at Guy Fieri's place.
The first time I saw him, I thought, Sammy Hagar's doing a TV show? Well, he did. Come on, didn't he?
It's funny. I just thought of this. It was at the casino. They opened up a casino in Baltimore. They had his restaurant there. And does have like Sammy Hagar cut his hair. Sammy Hagar cut his hair and he's doing a cooking show. Who knew? So there's Xavier Leggett telling you how to make her. So have you ever thought about, okay, how do I make a raccoon? How do I cook raccoon? Pressure cooker till the meat falls off the bone. And you put it in the oven. And what do you put on it?
Peppers or some
Peppers.
Carolina Reaper.
There you go. Well, Old Bay. Why not? Old Bay anything. All right. What's trending at 2, we're going to get back to focusing on what happened over the weekend at Founders for South Carolina against Florida. We're getting a little pulmonary. Also, though, Jamie Bradford on with the early game this morning, and Jamie had his thoughts about it. And John Whittle on Friday was with us here on the halftime show, and want to also put John's thoughts in before that 3-game series against Florida. It's all coming up on the halftime show. halftime show. Terry Ford, David Dare, what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry, Gamecock Traditions. Obviously, what's trending in these parts is a lost weekend, a truly lost weekend at Founders for the South Carolina baseball team. A lost season, really. That just had, there's been a lot of, that was rock bottom. Well, you hope. And look, there's a lot of stuff mixed in here. You had the weather that was an issue. You've had injuries here that's an issue for a team that doesn't have a whole lot of depth. You had to mix and match pitchers all over the place. And, again, pitching hasn't been your friend. So a lot of stuff just conspired against you. That, and you just face it, you haven't been a good team all year. And been a multitude of reasons for it. And when you're struggling like South Carolina struggled this year, it's more than just one department. It's everywhere. It's players, it's coaches, it's everything. And at the end of the day, some questions need to be asked and be answered, and some things have to be, decisions have to be made, and things have to be corrected. You cannot go through another season like this. A proud baseball program like South Carolina should not be in this position. It shouldn't be. And should never go through the weekend they just went through. And like I said in the opening riff of the show, I get it. Baseball is built to where some weekends you're terrible. You just are. There's a lot of games in a season, whether it's high school, college, professional. You're going to have a bad series, a bad week, a bad day. It's baseball. But what happened this past weekend was just a perfect storm of that can't happen again. Just can't. And this season can't happen again. Besides Missouri, who decided just to pass on the season, they're winless last time I checked. South Carolina would be the worst team in the SEC. That cannot happen here. It can't. So, Paul Maneri, we played some cuts from Coach in the first hour. I want to get a couple more here, Dave, before we get to the other audio. And Dave did a good job of pulling some audio from Jamie Bradford this morning on the early game, giving his thoughts, and also Big Spurs John Whittle on Friday going into the Florida series gave us his thoughts on the season. So before that, let's get to Coach Maneri real fast. One of the things that is, I don't know if puzzling is the right word, but, last year Blake Jackson played a good amount, got on base at a nice clip, and really has not been much of a part of this baseball team at all this year until the injuries started to factor in. Let's get cut 3, Dave. Here's Paul Maneri being asked why Jackson didn't start Game 3, and an update on Bo Hollins, who has had a hamstring deal on Sunday and couldn't play. Here's Coach Maneri. Cut 3, Dave.
I was a left-handed pitcher. That's why he didn't start the second game. Bo's, I knew he was, he slid last week against Kentucky, and I knew the back of his knee was a little bit sore. I didn't think it was that extensive. I showed up to the park this morning, and evidently Bo told the trainer that he couldn't play. So that's it for that.
So, Bo had the hamstring thing, couldn't play. And Jackson against the lefty, Coach Maneri sat down Jackson because of the lefty-lefty matchup in that instance. All right, also one other cut from Maneri real quick, Dave. And just kind of talk about, it's cut 4, saying, look, guys are trying. They're doing the best they can.
John, I think, you appeal to their pride, and they need to go out there every day and represent their university the best possible way. They can only do the best they can, and that, every kid has to look himself in the mirror and know if he's really doing the best he can, and if they are, that's all you can do.
Interesting quote about you got to look yourself in the mirror. Am I doing the best I can? You know, that quote's interesting because all we've heard from Paul Mainieri is praising the effort, right? Hey, these guys haven't given up. Hey, they're grinding. Hey, they're continuing on, trying to do the best they can and things of that nature. That's the first time we've heard, hey, guys got to look in the mirror and see if they are actually doing the best that they can. I thought that was an interesting quote from Mainieri, myself. All right, now let's get to some other folks who have chimed in on this. Jamie Bradford, again, was on this morning with the early game. And, Dave, I can't read your writing at all.
Why not?
I was joking about it with you earlier. You're like a pharmacist having a seizure and trying to write. All right, we have the first cut from Jamie. And what would that be, Dave?
Carry on.
Oh, Jamie was asked about, the issues with his team. And Jamie was kind of upfront about some of the coaching decisions made by Paul Mainieri. And he talks about Jordan Carrion, in particular, the South Carolina second baseman. Hit it, Dave.
And you go back and think to yourself, if you did things the right way, everything you were asked to do, and then the rug gets pulled out from underneath you and you don't understand why and nothing else seems to be working, and you feel like you're not getting a logical explanation as to, hey, I'm providing a positive impact to this program and you're punishing me for this. Why? And that begins to create a roller coaster effect, and sometimes that roller coaster starts going down and it can't come back up. So let me give you a couple of points. Jordan Carrion is asked to come in, 6 weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago or whatever, and essentially save the day. All right, so here's a guy who last year would have been in the starting lineup if he was eligible. All right, and so we get to this season, and they went to the portal, and they recruit some guys, they signed some guys, and Carrion never quit. He was like, no, I'm going to get on the field. And he kept doing things the right way. I'm doing things the right way. He gets in there, and he's a barn burner. I mean, he was hot, right? He's attacking everything early. He's out there, and, I know he had an inning against Oklahoma, but that's one inning. One inning. Okay? Outside of that, this kid was playing really, really, really well. And then, he gets moved all over the lineup. I need you to hit 8th. I need you to hit 6th. I need you to hit 7th. Oh, I need you to lead off. Well, wait a second here. I haven't led off. Okay. Well, you're not a good leadoff hitter. We're going to send you back to the bottom of the lineup. Now I need you to hit 4th. 4th? So you're going all over the place, and all of a sudden you don't perform, or you have a bad day and you're out of the lineup. Wait a second. You know what I mean? So you're asked to come in and save the day, and then over the span of 1 or 2 days, all of a sudden you're not going to play. It doesn't make any sense.
I get where Jamie's going, where, you're brought in, you're playing well, then you scuffle a little bit, and then maybe you're taken out of the lineup because you scuffled a little bit. It feels like to me that just watching some of this it just felt like Coach Mainieri has been just searching for answers. And maybe the patience level isn't what it was, or maybe the sense of urgency has been ticked up. The deeper you get in the season and all the buttons you're pushing, none of the buttons are working. And then you look at some things like we say with players or with teams, when you're going well, and you're down by 2 runs and there's runners on second and third and 2 outs. When you're going well, your guy hits a home run, right? Or your guy hits a 60-hop ground ball that gets in between all the infielders and rolls into the outfield to tie the game. When you're going bad and you have those 2 runners on, you hit a rocket right at the third baseman for the out, or you hit a ball that the center fielder pulls back and robs you from a home run, right? That's just the way life is when you're going good and going bad. And with coaching, too. You make a decision. Sometimes when you're going good, that decision's money, right? And when you're going bad, the decision blows up in your face. Little decisions. Like Florida, I think it was game 1. Florida had runners on, I believe it was second and third at the time. And the hitter had shown bunt on multiple pitches, and then finally did drop a bunt that I believe did score a run. And on the broadcast, you know, the crew was asking, you know, once you've seen a hitter square to bunt a couple of times, why didn't you have your corner infielders charging? Coach Maneri didn't, and of course the run scored. Now, if you have your guys charging and they cleanly field the bunt, do you have a play at the plate? Probably. But you don't have the corners charging for whatever reason. And it ends up being a run. Now, it doesn't matter in the big scheme of things because you basically got boat raced for 3 days. And there's some talk also about, you know, pitchers being given the opportunity to get ready enough in the pen before they're brought into games. The communication between pitchers and the dugout. So a lot of these things have been brought up. When things are going well, they're never brought up. When they're not going well, decisions become curious. All right, let's get the second cut in, Dave. And what's this one? Because I can't read your writing.
That one is they've had enough. Players have had enough.
The players have had enough. From a player's perspective, here's Jamie Bradford on the early game talking about their level of buy-in at this point.
We could go all day on pitchers. I mean, guys who were asked to do this and then asked to do that and then asked to do this. If there was anything, I was like, this is a guarantee going into the year. They're going to have a weekend starters, and they did. They did. You know, Paul Maneri's big on that. I want to set my rotation. I want to have a closer. I love that. I love it. That's how you win. Okay? Well, it wasn't working out. And so they started playing musical chairs, and now nobody knows what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, Jarvis Evans was supposedly saving the season, and then he has a bad outing, and now he's not pitching anymore. You know what I mean? So these are the things that mess with the psyche of a team. And I'm not trying to be negative, and I really don't want to put all your people who are headed to work and dropping kids off at school on a Monday morning, like, I don't want to put them in a bad light. I mean, things can change, and they will. This program will be back, you know. But, like, as far as where they are in the season and what we saw this weekend, it just feels like they went over the tipping point, and these kids have just had enough. Maybe they get it together the last couple of weeks. Maybe I'm dead wrong. I really hope that's true. But it just looked like they've just had enough. That's what it looks like to me.
And you hope it's not to that tipping point, but it did. It felt like it was the whole weight of the season crushed everything over the weekend is what it felt like. Now, again, could they bounce back in the next 6 games and play better? Sure. Because usually this team had held their own and just couldn't get over the hump and win games. But this past weekend, it just felt like coming up short so much through this entire campaign, it was just finally the weather, you know, the injuries, the whatever, everything just caved in. It's like that Jenga game. Everything just fell, man. Done. That's what it felt like. As we sit here on Monday, we'll see where it's at moving forward, but that's what it felt like watching and listening to it over the weekend. Let's get one more in here with, we don't have time for this one. Let's save this one for the next segment as we do what's trending at 2 with Jamie giving some hard truths about this baseball team and baseball program. We'll get to that next. Don't forget, baseball is coming up on Thursday, 7:45 pregame, 8 o'clock first pitch against Auburn. Yeah, the same Auburn team that gave Tennessee fits this past weekend. Nationally ranked Auburn will take on South Carolina next. Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Thursday, again, 7:45 will get started in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach. Jamie Bradford earlier this morning on the early game giving some hard truths about the program. We got that next here on the halftime show on the game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. Terry Ford, David Ayer, we're going to 3 here on the Game at the Halftime Show. All right, so we re-racking some sound, some thoughts from others about where the South Carolina baseball program is at this time. We're one more cut from Jamie Bradford, Dave. Let's get the one where Jamie talks about hard truths regarding this baseball program. Hit it.
Because it is low-hanging fruit for fans to go, well, these kids aren't any good. We just need to clean house and go to the transfer portal. Well, I got news for everybody. That ain't how it works, okay? Number one, there's enough talent on this team to win and to build your future off of. That's number one. Number two, all right, Tyler Head, he's the father of an 18-year-old, 19, 20-year-old kid who's in the transfer portal, or is a high school kid, or is a JUCO kid. And Preston Thorne, he's got an 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old kid. Same situation, right? Looking for a place to play next year. And the University of South Carolina calls you, okay? And you see that there's 25 guys in the portal. You mean to tell me you're not going to ask? Hey, why are there 25 guys in the portal? Because either response isn't good. Well, they all got in on their own. Whoa. Why? Or, well, we told all of them to hit the streets. Wait a second. These guys, there was like $1.something million in NIL that y'all gave them last year, and all of a sudden after 1 year, nah, y'all need to hit the skids. Get on out of here and go find somewhere else to play. Could that happen to my kid? How are you going to answer these questions? You send Monty Lee out, who is he is the most relationship-based recruiter in the Southeast. The guy knows everybody. I mean, everybody under the sun. And everybody loves him when he walks in the door. They can't wait for him to come see players, whether it's JUCO or high school or travel ball or you name it. How is he going to walk in and answer that question? How's he going to do it? I mean, what would there – so if you as a parent, or if you don't ask that question, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you do, how are you going to react to that? So I'm just telling you, y'all want to lay out some hard truths. That's where we are right now.
I mean, yeah, I get where Jamie's going. Absolutely. That's where you have to sell yourself and, okay, here's why and here's what's going on. But no, do you need better players? Sure. But are there players already on the roster that can be part of getting this thing turned around? Yeah, absolutely. You like the freshman at third and first base with Hollins and Scobie? Yes. I think Jake McCoy has a SEC level arm. He just has to get command and figure out where it's going with location. There are other pieces here that could help you moving forward. Sure. But you also are going to have to infuse this team with talent. Like I said, this is not just, okay, let's just point the finger at one part of this baseball team. You want to point the finger at the head coach and the coaching staff? Sure. We can talk about when your one-loss record is what it is in SEC play, the buck stops with the head coach. You brought in the players, you brought in the assistant coaches, or you agreed to keep assistant coaches. Now, again, I'll give you we're going to get someone texting something very interesting I'm going to get to here. We got a bunch of texts we're going to get to. We might be preempting some of our normal stuff here to really dig into this hour. But, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. It's not just players it's players, coaches, a lot of stuff here that has to get unpacked. All right, now go to John Whittle. John was on with us Friday afternoon before the Florida series. And let's start with what John Whittle's surprised about what, Dave?
Well, that was, when the coach said that he was surprised at the strength
about the SEC, how tough the SEC was. So John gave us his thoughts on that comment from Coach Maneri.
Well, he said it. There was a gaggle of us about a month and a half ago, kind of near the start of SEC play, outside the dugout before an SEC series, and he said basically the same thing. I asked him about it, and he said, and he gave a little bit more context and said, back when I was coaching in the league, if you get a pitcher out early in the game and they were kind of off schedule, they'd bring in a freshman and It'd be too big of a moment for them. And, then you read about how, back when he was coaching, there wasn't a transfer portal or anything like that. And now teams are bringing in, when you get out that starting pitcher, instead of bringing in that freshman, they're bringing in the guy from the transfer portal who's 23 years old and has played at 3 different schools. So he gave a little bit more context than he did more recently with you guys. But, I thought the same thing. I thought earlier in the week, just how out of touch can you be? I mean, he's a national championship winning coach who is still holding in an emeritus position at LSU and still following the game very closely. How do you not understand that? Do you not know how good the league is? And, I don't know if the league's as good this year as it was last year, to be honest. But not trying to take anything away from the league this year, but I think it was probably a little bit better last year. But it's one of the most out-of-touch comments I've ever heard from any South Carolina coach. It's not the most damaging. I mean, it was the Spurrier 2 to 3 year comment. It's not as damaging as this one, but that's one of the most out-of-touch comments I've ever heard in my life from a South Carolina coach. I've been covering this program for a little while, so I don't know what to say. He said a lot of shocking things all year. He's thrown players under the bus all year. He's had some really poor press conferences and commentary that he's given, and that's right up there with some of the worst.
It was a head scratcher. There's no doubt, and I think, look, it's just stuff like this. If you were having a really good season and said, I tell you what, I underestimated this league. I don't know how we're getting through it the way we are. You're like, well, okay, because the coaching, the players, everybody's navigated it, even though you really were surprised how competitive it was, or you didn't really realize this. But when you're struggling like this and you're being honest and say, I underestimated the league, John Whittle said, I mean, were you that just not paying attention to the league at all the last few years? And if you're not, that's fine. It's not a criticism. You'd retired. But I guess when you come back, my thought is, do you ramp up and get as much information as you can? And how much information was given to Paul Mainieri? What was he told when he took the job here? Just saying. I mean, sometimes the things you're told and the things you find out, you might find out more than you were told, or you might just have a different perspective. I don't know. But it was a very interesting comment from Coach Mainieri. All right, Dave, we probably don't have enough time for the disconnected part, do we? So we're going to get in the next segment. Usually we do Greatest Day in the History of the World. We're going to kind of preempt to get you more. Because, I mean, what happened this weekend was tough. And we have to, sit back and sift through everything that's going on with this baseball program. And we're going to hear John Whittle talking about the disconnect between the players and the coaches, the possible disconnect. That's coming up next here on the Halftime Show. We go till 3. Do not forget, Jay and Elijah hanging out, doing the roadie, the Schroeder's Towing Road Show at Savage Craft Ale Works in West Columbia. That's 3 to 6 today on the Game. We'll come back, hear more from John Whittle, his thoughts on the possible disconnect between the players and the coaching staff on this baseball team. That's next here on the Halftime Show on the Game. halftime show. Usually we do Greatest Day in the History of the World here, but we're just we want you to hear some different voices and thoughts on what's going on with the baseball program. Obviously, a bad weekend at home against Florida. Just bad every way, shape, or form. Just bad. The season has been bad. It felt like this was the rock bottom, or hope it's the rock bottom of the 2025 campaign. How did we get here? I think we're kind of looking at that a little bit today. And just want to get some more voices. We heard Jamie Bradford here earlier in the hour, his thoughts on the early game this morning. We're getting you some John Whittle, who was on with us Friday at 2:15 with, what was running through his head regarding this baseball program. And I said this opened the show. Look, a lot of decisions have to be made because there's questions, man. There's questions. And it goes deeper than, all right, you just didn't get, you got to get better players next year. Yeah, you do. But there are also players in this team that should be better than they are, that aren't as good as they were last year. What happened? There are players who had bigger roles last year that you're not seeing this year. Why? What happened? You're seeing pitchers who were better last year than they are this year. What happened? Or pitchers you don't even see take the mound like they did last year. What happened? Some of those answers could be simple. We got better players this year. I don't know. So, yeah, you have to get better players, but you also have to sift through the players you do have and say, why do some of these guys go backwards? I think that's a fair question. Also, what are you going to do moving forward? Is Coach Maneri wanting to come back in 2026? Does Jeremiah Donati want to bring back Maneri in 2026? And if Coach does come back in 2026, what does he learn from this year about not only the SEC, but baseball in 2025 that he can apply? As you always should look to evolve and grow as a leader. What have you learned to apply to the next baseball season to get this program back on the right track? All these are questions that need to be answered. But whatever the answers are to these questions, it's obvious this can't happen again. This just can't. And it has to get corrected and starting to get itself back on the right path. The baseball program's too proud. It's been too proud. This fan base loves this baseball team. I've learned these things over my 4 years. And it's got to get back going to where it needs to be. It just does. Because now you're looking at, there's going to be an SEC deal about the baseball, that 3-year run with Ray Tanner coming up next week. It's been a minute or two now. A lot of these kids who are growing up don't remember South Carolina being one of the best baseball programs in the country. You don't want that to start happening, where people forget the good old days, and they become just good old days. So things got to get fixed. Just does. All right, here's John Whittle talking about on Friday with us, talking about the disconnect between the players and the coaches. Hit it, Dave.
When you're as bad as this South Carolina team has been this year, it's got to be a whole lot of different things. I mean, it's not ever just one thing. When you take the kind of step back that this team and this program has, so I don't know. It's certainly there's certainly a disconnect on the players and coaches. I don't think that there's any debate in that. I don't think that this team was, talented enough to compete for championships or anything like that. Like when coming into the season, I thought they'd finish probably 10, 11, 12 in the league, something like that. My expectations weren't crazy high. I thought they'd be below 500 in the league, probably I think 13 or 14 wins. But they're at the bottom of the conference, or with the exception of Missouri. At the bottom of the conference in basically everything. And, that's not what this team is.
Yeah, I mean, there is a disconnect. And that's also an issue that needs to be fixed. If we're running this thing back next year, why is there a disconnect? Just different styles from Mark Kingston to Paul Maneri. Why is there a disconnect with the players and the coaching staff? I think that's when you're looking to grow and evolve, you got to figure that out because that's your job as a coaching staff. How much of the coaching staff you want to bring back next year? If you come back as Coach Maneri, or you're bringing everybody back. But why is there a disconnect with the players? And really, that's on you as a coach to figure out. When you are the person in charge and you're having an issue with your people, it's up to you to figure out why there's an issue. Now, sometimes is it, just some of the people aren't very good people when it comes to their job, their attitude toward their job. Maybe they're not a good fit for you. Maybe you're not a good fit for them, whatever the case. But a lot of the time it's like, okay, what can I do better to connect? How do we connect? World changes. 3-4 years is like 30 or 40 years anymore in some respects. And you've got to figure out how to motivate players and how you get them to buy into your vision of what you see their role in the program and where you want the program to be. So whatever that disconnect is, if Coach Maneri comes back next year, one of the things you got to figure out is how do I connect better, obviously, because there's an issue here. Or is it with your staff? Then you got to figure that out as well with the players. All right, let's talk about, let's get this last one in from John Whittle about backward steps. Dave, hit that.
The first word that just keeps coming to mind is just how much of a disaster this season's been. And the thing I keep going back to is just the thing that just doesn't leave me is how much basically everybody on the roster who's returned from last year is taking a step back in their development and in their play. And, I just those are that's what really sticks with me most. Like there's been no improvement from last year to this year among players. There's been little improvement within the year for basically any guy. And that's I posted a tweet about a month ago now that, I just feel bad for the players. And that's kind of the crux of it is, you come to a place to get better and improve yourself, and it just hadn't happened.
Yeah, again, there's just some players who have taken a step backwards and some players who have come here to take their game to another level, and for whatever reason it hasn't happened. There's some, they've shown, like Nathan Hall's come in and he's got an opportunity and Hall's taken advantage of it and had a fine year. But there are others where it hasn't worked out the way they hope it would. And there's some players on this team, again, who were better last year than they are this year. Now, again, just to be as simple as this is, a first year, and sometimes first years can be clunky. Or is there something more to this? I don't know. We're going to find out. Because, again, there's a lot of questions that need to be answered. We're going to get to you on the Firehouse Sub text line. We're going to do more than one in our Firehouse Sub text the hour next at 803-404-6100. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, David Dare, till 3. Then it's Jay and Elijah from Savage Craft, Center Street in West Columbia. The Schroeder's Road Show will get going again today from 3 to 6. Paul Maneri, baseball coach, will be on at 5:15 also, like always, here on The Game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, David Ayer getting you ready for Schroeder's Towing Roadshow 3 to 6 at Savage Craft in West Columbia. We've been there many times. So it's always good to go back there. We're obviously promoting our craft beer card. So Jay and Elijah again at Savage Craft. 5:15 Paul Maneri will be on the show as well. All right, Firehouse Sub text of the hour, textuses of the hour as we go through a bunch. We're going to go through a few because we have more than one we need to get to. And here's one. Don't watch guy. Monty Lee has got to be really upset. He thought he was in line for the job or wanted the job. Instead, he sat there as an assistant going through this terrible season. And Monty Lee was a candidate. Absolutely was a candidate for the head coaching job. And didn't get it, but stayed on the staff. And it's been rough. Offensively, this team has struggled. Pitching-wise, this team has struggled. Here lately, defensively, this team has struggled. Again, you're not there. You don't know what could be going on with the dynamic. Remember, Monty, it was kind of like, okay, Paul, we want to offer you the head coaching job, but we want you to talk to Monty about keeping him. Now, would Paul Maneri have kept Monty if it wasn't a conversation? I don't know. Maybe he would have. Maybe he wouldn't have. I don't know. But remember, it was an interesting situation from the get-go. And maybe they get along just famously, and I'm just looking for stuff to talk about. I don't know. But I think it's a question. Again, we have a lot of questions. Another text, anonymous. The hire of this baseball coach has turned out to be a very disastrous hire. Yes. Well, the record is not great. Here's another one, though. Let's look at the facts of this whole hire. Fact number one, Maneri didn't have a chance to get anyone from the portal because the athletic director at the time waited until after the portal was closed to hire him. Fact number two, you got a $500,000 a year hitting coach, and the team is hitting worse than they did last year. Fact three, the hitting coach / assistant coach didn't do us any favors by bringing anyone in through the portal that would have helped. Just an observation from a loyal fan. So that's, looking at it from a bigger picture of when Maneri was hired, how long the hire took, and did the timeline also hurt Maneri and the coaching staff from getting players in? That's an interesting thought, an interesting conversation to have. That's why I say sometimes when you get hired for the first year, things don't go as well as anybody expects because of a lot of different factors. Again, that's another question that needs to be asked in this whole situation. Jacob says, I never thought I would ever be in favor of moving on from someone after 1 year, but unfortunately the writing is on the wall. With this hire, you have to make a move. The team feels like they've given up. It was obvious over the weekend. It's a lost program right now that needs a fresh start. The coach has said some questionable things this season that I haven't loved, but I don't hold any ill will toward him. It just isn't working, and for the sake of the program, you need to have a restart. Another text. It's tough to blame a coaching staff when the players don't seem to be of the caliber you need to have to win in the SEC. I say you run it back with the same coaching staff and just go get better players, and let's see where it's at. And if we're still having trouble after year two, then it's time to take a look at the coaching. Okay. So a lot of different thoughts in a lot of different directions is where we're at. Again, it's just you're just going to have to sit down and look at all of these factors at the end of the season. We watch it, and then again, from the distance that I sit in a studio, doesn't seem like the players are as good as the guys on the other team. But then my question is, why are some of the players on this team who were better last year than they are this year? Why? We look at some of the in-game coaching decisions or pitching changes or whatever, and we go, interesting, why? Then to the one texter, was this whole season kind of started one hand tied behind its back because of the timeline in hiring a new coach, especially with the world of the transfer portal and things of that nature when you're trying to navigate that and you don't have a head coach. and your assistant coach, who is the quote-unquote interim coach, is trying to make some things happen, even though he's the interim coach, and it's not like he's going to be the permanent coach, or there's no decision on that yet. So a lot of this equals where it's at. And when it becomes like this, like I said to open the show, there's no one person to point the finger at. I think the whole thing can be looked at as here's the problem. But now you've seen it. How do you solve it? And that's something at the end of the season, then these questions need to start being answered. And they're started by a new athletic director in Jeremiah Donati, who has got to figure this thing out. In what direction he wants to go, in Paul Maneri, what direction he wants to go. Then you have players, who's going to stay, who's going to go. As a coaching staff, who do you want to keep, who you don't want to keep in a perfect world too. So a lot of stuff has to happen here, but one thing I think you and I can agree on is this can't be repeated. Whichever way you go with this thing, it can't happen again. Whether it's the same coaching staff, a new coaching staff, a lot of new players, some of the players on this team who can help you next year. However this goes, can't happen like this again. Again, such a proud program with a fan following that is passionate. And right now, I feel some of is there still some anger out there? What's going on this year? Yeah, but I feel like there's also folks that are going, and the last thing you want is apathy. Last thing you want is whatever. You don't want that. That's the worst. You'd rather have people screaming, yelling, and being mad and angry at you than just this apathy. It's the last place you want to go. And like I said, the weather was ridiculous this past weekend. Games are moving around all over the place. But, you don't want an empty Founders Park or an apathetic fan base. You want people filling the yard who are passionate and crazy and making it very difficult for the visiting team to even see or hear each other. That's what you want at the end of the day. So questions need to be answered and decisions have to be made to make sure this doesn't happen again. Appreciate the texting, 803-404-6100. Up next, Schroeder's Towing Roadshow at Savage Craft Ale Works, 430 Center Street, West Columbia, with Jay and Elijah. Paul Maneri, baseball coach, will jump in at 5:15 with the guys. Dave, fine work, my friend. We'll do this again tomorrow. Tyler will be back with us here on the halftime show. Again, the postgame show coming up next with Jay and Elijah. Baseball later this week. Thursday against Auburn, 7:45 pregame, 8 o'clock first pitch. All that's coming up on the game in Columbia and our affiliate in Myrtle Beach. Talk to you later.
All right, 3 o'clock on a Monday. Happy Cinco de Mayo. You made it.
We did.
Welcome aboard the postgame show. Alongside Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Jeannie is here making sure we don't burn the place down. And by the place, I mean Savage Craft Brewing right across the river from downtown Columbia here in beautiful Waco. That's West Columbia, South Carolina.
I see what you did there.
See, well, they do it. I didn't come up with it. It's a shortened version.
I was going to give you credit for something
that
you did not come up with. I was going to give you some
I'll claim credit for all kinds of stuff, but not that one. Not that one, because somebody would call me out real quick. But good to have you on board. We'll do our best to keep things festive here on a nice holiday for a lot of folk. But I also am a realist and understand that the mood around South Carolina baseball, which was already, oh gosh, Elijah Campbell, how do I say it kindly? It was already
bleak,
sour.
Yeah,
sour. Since we're at a beer place, has now gone just like spoiled. A really just a horrible weekend for the Gamecocks on a weekend when they were celebrating some of the greatness of the program. South Carolina is outscored by Florida 40-8,
39-8,
39-8,
40 if you round up.
Whatever, close enough. Right.
I mean, what's one run difference?
Yeah, I don't know at this point. But shutout, one game, 22-3. Elijah and I have done the wrong kind of math today. And by wrong kind, I don't know that we necessarily mean we got the outcomes wrong as much as you delving in to really find out exactly what this team is looking like, and it is not good. And there's just no way to sugarcoat it. And at this point in time, with 6 games remaining, even if you swept them, but even if you swept them, you're not going to the tournament based on that. That's the national tournament, of course. And really, the only way now is to go win the Southeastern Conference baseball tournament. And I'm just gonna, say I don't know what the sports book percentages would say. I'm gonna say though, you gotta. I mean, this is like plus 10,000 or something if you were to pull it off. And look, I'm not trying to be flippant, y'all. This team is not good. And you're not going to go win 5 games in 5 days. You're just not. And just to remind everybody, the new baseball tournament format mirrors the basketball tournament format. So,
all single elimination.
Yeah. So you just you get, the top 4 get 2 days off, the second 4 get a day off, and the bottom 8 will play on day 1, and those winners move into the next round. So that's how it's going to work. And obviously South Carolina is going to be playing on day 1. The Gamecocks are now in 15th place in the Southeastern Conference, 5 games plus a series loss behind Mississippi State, who's is the team ahead of them. State has double the number of wins in conference play that South Carolina has. And I just don't know what else to say. I continue to be dumbfounded by just how this happened. I've seen bad teams. It's unfortunate that we've seen this program miss the postseason tournament a few times since making it for however many years in a row. And now, again, Elijah, save for Missouri, who, God bless him, is also still 0 for the league. Well, not also, but is still 0 for the league. You're the worst program. And based, as I've said many times on the show, to you, to the audience, taking into account what baseball means to Missouri and then taking into account what it means to the rest of the conference, you're the worst program in the conference.
Oh, and it's by a chunk, too. I mean, if you just look even at the statistical rankings of certain things, you're down at the very bottom, and outside Missouri, because Missouri's last in everything. I mean, we're talking like north of an 11 ERA in conference play.
Oof.
It's pretty bad.
South Carolina's is almost 9.
Yeah, and do you know what the average ERA is for teams in the SEC? I tallied them all up. I did the math.
In conference play?
Yes.
In conference play, I'm going to go high 4s, maybe around 5. Oh, average. I guess average. Yeah. Maybe a little over 5.
5.83.
Okay, yeah. Oh, yeah. For average.
That still puts you 2.62 below average. Yeah. Almost 3 runs below average in ERA. Hitting's pretty bad. I mean, you're 15th in runs, 15th in home runs. Ironically enough, you're 4th in the league in on-base percentage, but are still managed to be 15th in runs scored. And it's not like you steal a lot of bases. You're tied for 15th in stolen bases. And pitching has just been it's just been a collection of follies all season long on the pitching staff. And you look at how bad it's been at times. I went ahead I went through every single game, Jay Phillips, and looked at the last 3 innings of each SEC game.
Okay.
You have surrendered 84 runs in 71 innings, and that's just the last 3 runs of each game. So innings 7 through 9 in games that go 9 innings, innings 5, 6, and 7 on games in which you've been run ruled, which is a decent chunk, and then the one in which you went to extra innings, so it was 8, 9, and 10 for those innings. That for just a run average, not earned run average, you're just run average in the final 3 innings of your SEC games this season. Would you like to take a guess? Just the run average.
Let's see, 360. Well, I mean that's over 9.
It's 10.6.
Yeah.
Your earned run average, and then I went back and accounted for runs that are unearned, so subtracted that from that total. Your ERA, just your raw ERA in the last 3 innings of SEC games this year is 9.51.
My Lord.
I don't know how you're supposed to win games.
So in the last
when you can't keep
in the last 3 innings, they've scored 84, or they've allowed 84 runs.
Yep.
And
total runs.
In total conference play, they've allowed 184. So 100 have been scored in the others. So
yeah,
the ratio.
84 of the 184 have
late.
come in the final 3 innings of their games.
Yeah.
You're just not going to win any games like that. And if we want to talk about, what's the Bill Parcells all-time quote, like you are what your record says you are?
Yes.
I don't like saying this, and I don't like coming as you get decked. Oh my God, man down. Oh man, if we want a clip on the show that is reflective of the baseball season, it's Jay getting attacked by the sign.
That's fun.
It is Jay getting attacked by the 107.5.
I'm just going to leave it. I'm not even going to put it back up.
But let me get to this real quick too. In terms of you are what your record says you are, the record's not very good, obviously. But this team might be worse than the record indicates. Because what do usually bad teams have? Usually some bad luck. Now, you've had bad luck. Not to say this team has had bad luck. But sometimes there are teams that are really good, have bad records because they lose a lot of close games. That's not the case with this team, right? You're not even a victim of bad luck. You're 3-2 in one-score games in one-run games in SEC play. You are 5-2 all season long in one-run games. You are 8-4 in games decided by 2 runs or fewer this year. 10-6 in games decided by 3 runs or fewer. You've been blown out enough to where you can't even chalk up a bad year to bad baseball luck.
Right. I have some other numbers that we'll delve into here throughout the afternoon that are similar and equally discouraging, disappointing, angering, a host of feelings and emotions that fans are going to have. And it's just, I know a lot of folks are asking, too, what comes next. Coach Maneri is going to join us at 5:15. At this point, you've got 6 games to play. And 7 games to play, and then we'll see if you have an 8th or beyond, right? So you've got 6 plus 1 in Hoover against somebody.
There's a log jam for the spot who's going to play them in the first round.
And look, you might win that game. Again, you've managed a couple here or there, but this weekend, to me, look, I don't know. I'll be careful here, and maybe I'm being a little hyperbolic, but I just that felt like disinterest. That felt like capitulation. Again, 39 runs.
Well, 22-3. A 22-3 loss should never happen at this university to anyone. To anyone.
We talk sometimes about worst team in the NFL and best team in college and playing all this kind of. But I'm really not kidding too much when I say I wouldn't expect the Braves to score 22 runs on the Gamecocks. Now,